Leslie, thank you very much for having me and everybody else. I do consider this an honor, a privilege to be up here talking to you about the Congressional Medal of Honor Society and the Character Development Program. Tonight I'm going to talk about the Congressional Medal of Honor Foundation, their Character Development Program, and the Citizens Honors, which Leslie said she did see my pictures from the dinner that my father and I were invited to. First and foremost, the Medal of Honor is the highest award the United States bestows upon members of the armed forces for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty. My goal with the Character Development Program is to have Cheshire host the first Connecticut-based training for it and have it implemented as some part of our educational system, and that'll be left up to the Board of Ed and their staff as to where they'd like to implement it. First time I ever met a Congressional Medal of Honor recipient was April 19th, 1997. Captain George Street, who commanded the USS Taranti in World War II. I had the privilege of him pinning on my submarine warfare Dolphins up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. My father was there, my grandfather was there, and it was, I didn't quite realize how big it was at the time until I look back and reflect on it and have a man of his stature come there and do this for myself and a few other of the submariners that I was with. Where this all started for me was on one of our visits down to see Barney Barnum. And sitting in his kitchen, we started talking about what we can do for our youth, what's out there, and he started talking to me about the Character Development Program. The more he talked, the more I listened, the more intrigued I got. And a couple of his quotes that just continue to resonate with me that he said to me is, set your goals high, always reach out to get those goals, never say they are too hard, never say I can't. If you try something and it doesn't work, don't give up, back up, think of something else, and take the word failure out of your vocabulary.
Jeff, who was we? Was your dad with you?
Yes. When we're down there, normally it's my father, my kids. Sometimes I'll go down there on my own and...
I'll point out that your daughter Haley is with us this evening operating.
Yes.
Thank you.
So a lot of our conversations happen in his kitchen and through email when I'm not down there, or if I take trips down there, I manage to somehow average about 3 trips down to DC a year. And I always reach out to Barney, see if he's around, and go visit him and his wife and spend some time with them. For those who are unaware of all of Barney's achievements, obviously he was born and raised here in Cheshire, graduated high school in 1958, went on to college and into the officers program, and then served in the Marine Corps for 27 years, 1962 to 89. From there, his resume grows. He was a principal director for the Drug Enforcement Policy Office of the Secretary of Defense. He was Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Reserve Affairs, Acting Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Manpower and Reserve Affairs, and 3 years ago, my father and I, and John was there, we were at a ship naming ceremony. He now has a destroyer being built in his name, which should be commissioned in 3 years. And this is a man who never stops giving, never turns down an opportunity to talk to kids, meet with kids, anybody, right down to my kids or any high school kids. That's what he wants to do on a constant basis, is to talk with them and hopefully influence them to be more and to do more for society. When we're together, we're always snapping pictures. At his ship naming ceremony, my son up there, you can't really see, But when I walked into the living room one day when we were down visiting around Christmas time, my son is holding Barney's Medal of Honor. Barney took it out. He was giving them a living history lesson right then and there, and I was a little taken back because how often do you get to hold one of those, let alone see a recipient? And of course, we always take group pictures with the kids, and 2 years ago, Barney invited me down for a dinner. Him and his wife did. It was to benefit the National Law Enforcement Memorial. And normally I don't wear my uniform outside of work, let alone outside of town, but when Barney tells you to wear the uniform, you wear it. So I did, and had a great time down there at the dinner. And now the National Law Enforcement Memorial is open. So next time you go down to DC, you can see it. So on to the character development program. And back in 2007, a group of teachers and administrators in Pennsylvania, funded by a grant from the GE Foundation, created the lessons that would become the character development program. The initial lessons were formally launched in 2009, and the elementary resource was added in 2016. This is designed by educators. It provides resources built on the values of integrity, courage, commitment, sacrifice, citizenship, and patriotism. Its living histories and accompanying lessons teach students that ordinary people can meet great challenges and make the world around them a better place. The program makes abstract principles concrete via the oral histories of the Medal of Honor recipients and everyday heroes. Each lesson highlights skills such as writing, collaboration, and critical thinking. Resources are appropriate for K through 12. Assignments and activities fit efficiently into existing disciplines, time periods, and schedules. For all ages and circumstances, the overriding message is that every person has within them the capacity to be a hero. We'll show you some slides later on of citizens heroes that we got to meet. Barney Barnum came from Cheshire, never planned on being a hero, but he did. When called upon, he acted and took the initiative. All lessons are built around the character these outstanding Americans have demonstrated. Content-rich nonfiction sets this program apart from other character development programs. The lessons are separated by grade level to match academic skills and learning objectives and to develop a foundation of good character. Individual and group assignments, along with extended activities, inspire youth to reach their potential inside and outside of the classroom. What the program contains: cross-curricular lesson plans, all necessary handouts and worksheets, short oral history videos of Medal of Honor recipients and Citizens Honor awardees, short biographies of selected Medal of Honor recipients, and a bibliography with additional recommended sources. How the program can be used: it can be used public, private, parochial, charter, even homeschools. In social studies, history, English, language arts, math, science, and other classes, through an advisory program, as part of a school-wide character or anti-bullying initiative, with after-school or community groups. And one of those community groups that I have used it in is the Cheshire Police Explorers program, which are kids aged 14 to 21. And I was amazed at, just out of one lesson, what came out of there. And we talked about the 6 core values of this program and the way their minds thought. And you just make them think of something outside of, their norm. And we'll have a video.
You don't have to don a uniform for service or sacrifice. I just happened to wear one when the actions happened for me that day. It doesn't matter where you're from or what you're doing. When you see a need, when you see a challenge, do you sit there and just let it pass you by? Or do you stand up and say, hey, this is the right thing to do, and go do it?
How do you teach character? I think you have to let the kids' experiences teach them. Show them that they've already had these experiences that they can learn from in their own lives. How many of you have obstacles in your life? Things that come up. Did Clint Robichaud have obstacles to his mission? Every time he went out, it was obstacle, obstacle, obstacle. But what did he do? He just kept going back out there.
He never gave up, even when he got hit by the RPG and he got a hole in his arm, he still kept going.
We all fight battles that we have to face. And whether you're in Vietnam, Korea, Iraq, or Afghanistan, or whether you're living in your home neighborhood and you're faced with a situation, where you fight that battle is here and here. And what you need to fight that battle with and what you need to be victorious are the values in your own heart and your own mind.
It's very important that these young people know about their commitment to this country. They have a commitment. Well, they know it not. Now tell them. The Character Development Program reaches out and makes sure that these children are getting the education they need. Not who we are, it's the character we have. That makes us, and I think it's very important.
We were asked to write lessons based on video interviews with living recipients of the Medal of Honor. So we were looking at courage and commitment, sacrifice, integrity, citizenship, and patriotism. And those are fundamental values for everyone in our nation.
To have citizenship is not being a citizen, but it's rather helping other citizens in your community.
Courage is not having the strength to go on. It is going on when you don't have the strength.
Sacrifice is giving up something good for something better.
I have a big thing I say about students owning their words. Having ownership and trying to live by those words is having character.
My experience is that when the program is integrated into the schools, the kids come out differently. You can see the difference when you walk into a school.
There are always people that are stepping forward. Can we use the platform we've been given by virtue of our military service to recognize others who do comparable things, but in a civilian environment? And we can honor as a demonstration to the young people in particular that you need not go into the military and wear the uniform in order to confront a circumstance that will challenge your being.
When I got there, there were 3 students between the young man and myself. And I saw he had a gun. The kids are running. Everybody's kind of going for safety. There was no way I was calling a parent saying I didn't protect their kid.
One thing I think teachers are always trying to figure out is real-world connections. We can tell them about George Washington, we can tell them about, Napoleon Bonaparte, but I don't know that it necessarily sticks for them. And this is one way I would say it does.
You need to know that someone else before you did something amazing and that you're capable of doing that too and not just running away from your problems.
It just gives me more energy towards helping people and making sure people are safe.
What's interesting about the Citizen Honors is that they look at it and they go, that could be me. And so they start to look at heroes as somebody they want to become instead of just somebody to look up to.
It's being willing to take a risk to do something for somebody else. And that might mean when you see somebody in the hall who's being bullied, it might mean stepping in and saying, hey, cut this out. That's going to put you out of your comfort zone. And life will not become significant until you start to live outside your comfort zone.
It means a lot to me.
You can relate, maybe not to those circumstances specifically, but you can relate some things to where you've had to overcome obstacles in your life.
How many of you have had that one student that you just wish they would get out of your classroom, out of your face? Come on, how many have had that? How many have had that? We all have. Look hard at that kid. Look hard at that kid. I was a kid. I was voted most likely to never succeed in anything. Look deep. Look deep. That kid maybe he's just looking for a little push out. Just a little push out.
Why I am here is because I wear this medal around my neck. It's not mine. It doesn't belong to me. I hold it for all those men and women that, when asked, stood. They've stood for something more than themselves.
The medal represents sacrifice, and that sacrifice can be shown on a daily basis. From the smallest to the biggest thing, we're all presented with opportunities, and whether you're in the military or as a civilian, everybody should serve. Without service and sacrifice, we would not have the nation we do today.
All right, Paul Bucca, you saw in there, every young person has the potential to change the world. What the lessons do for students, they engage students with the stories of military and civilian heroes, start a conversation about values, promote collaboration, critical thinking, and personal reflection, reinforce core subject skills, encourage action in the school and the community. How the program stands out, all resources are provided at no cost. It's designed by educators for educators. And as you heard in the video, real-world examples making abstract values concrete. What is offered? Online access to all lessons and videos, thumb drives with all lessons and videos, in-person training opportunities, webinar interview with Medal of Honor recipients, and additional resources including recipient biographies and citations. The Medal of Honor Character Development Program is designed to prompt students to think of others first and make good choices every day. The CDP teaches students that ordinary people can meet great challenges and change the world. So we'll take a brief look at the 6 core values that this program has: courage, integrity, patriotism, citizenship, commitment, and sacrifice. You look at courage, mental or moral strength to venture, persevere, or withstand danger, fear, or difficulty, doing the right thing at the right time for the right reasons, bravery in the face of physical pain, hardship, death, or threat of death. Integrity, the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. Patriotism, love for or devotion to one's country. Citizenship, the position or status of being a citizen of a particular country. To be a good citizen anywhere, you have to be a good person. That means showing respect, having a good attitude, or just helping out. In the classroom, you have to show responsibility by doing your homework on time or listening and following directions. Commitment, an agreement or pledge to do something in the future. Sacrifice, giving up something good for something better. Giving up something that is valuable to you in order to help another person. And to never forget those who have gone before us to protect our way of life, our freedom. There is no greater honor than the opportunity to serve and help preserve our freedom. It's the essence of humanity. And this is a quote from the program from a middle school student. I look at and appreciate many things that I did not appreciate before. Most of all, I appreciate my freedom. We'll jump into the Citizens Honors Program now. And this is an award created by the Medal of Honor recipients to recognize American civilians for their courage and service above self. And we'll have another video just about this program.
I was standing in the middle of the cafeteria when I heard shots coming out of a hallway, and a kid ran out with a gun.
He looked a little lost. I'm telling him to put down the gun. You have to.
Evacuated the entire team except the 2 surgeons and the 2 anesthesiologists that work with Doctors Without Borders. He said, if you guys want to stay, stay. But it's your decision.
I think I went on automatic mode. I got out of my car, ran across 2 lanes of traffic, basically said, you and me, God.
We start with the premise that each and every person possesses the potential to do something extraordinary. We believe that. Why? Look at us. Common people who someone else decided did something extraordinary. If that's the premise, that each person has the potential, what about in a non-military circumstance? Is it not appropriate for us to recognize those people?
4 months ago, the Medal of Honor Foundation began its search for citizen heroes. That's everyday people who became extraordinary.
The Citizen Honors is an annual recognition of American citizens who've gone above and beyond in their own personal actions in their communities. And has nothing whatsoever to do with military action. People in everyday life have put their own lives on the line.
Of action in the most dangerous of circumstances, and for that, we honor him today.
We've received a lot of honors over our lives, and wearing the medal is the highest of all. So we'd like to turn it around and to use this opportunity to recognize citizens that know the significance of sacrifice and courage, and they've certainly demonstrated that in their deeds.
We saw an ordinary person get involved in a circumstance at a time when he or she reached within them and literally challenged destiny as they understood it to be.
We offer the opportunity for communities throughout the nation to present people who they feel are deserving of being recognized for their acts of service. We have a committee of foundation members that look at those 100 to 125 that come in and reduce that down to 20 finalists. And if in the 20 finalists, they've got to pick 3. 1 for selfless service and 2 for valor.
Most of the Medal of Honor citations are over a matter of minutes, if not seconds. Yet there are other people who serve for a lifetime. Some of our criteria involve fortitude, personal risk, but not necessarily risk of health, life and limb. People who, day in and day out, give of themselves in service to others.
The whole idea of the Medal of Honor expanded is for the purpose of teaching everybody that he's got a role to play in his community. You've got an obligation to the guy who lives on the left and the right, and he to you. That's the notion, I think, that the Medal of Honor Foundation is working hard to bring to every person in the country.
You know these things happen, and we need somehow to transmit this to our youth. Hey, someday you may be called upon to do a very extraordinary thing. And at that point in time, you very likely will do it.
In my head, anybody do it. There was no way I was calling a parent saying I didn't predict their kid.
could not have lived with himself unless he was the last man out of that building, unless he was absolutely convinced there was nobody else he could save.
The recipients of the Medal of Honor, one of the common themes in talking to them was, I was just doing my job. But in a way, that's what I felt. You do what your heart tells you to do. This is what you're supposed to do.
The Medal of Honor recipients have longed for a long time, a platform in which they could say well done to others. And these honors allow us to do that. And we sit in the audience and cheer. If we could figure out a way to educate young people as they're growing up, that each person they meet has the potential to change the world, then we've accomplished something.
I think had I really stopped to think on February the 23rd, 1945, hey, if you do this, you could get killed. Yet there was something within me that said, you've got to do this, not for yourself. And I believe that happens in civil life many, many times. There's something within them that says, I've got to forget me. At this moment, I've got to get me out of the picture. That's the person I've got to think about. And to me, that is service above self. You can't get any higher than that.
So that was a brief overview on the Citizens Honors Program, and I was fortunate enough to get this invite. I still don't know how I got it, or no, this is good. I still don't know how I got the invite, where it came from. I asked Barney if he had something to do with it, but he told me no. Called up, said I could bring a guest, so brought Dad. He was the first one in line. And it was just excitement to figure out what it was. We got down there, it was a quick trip, it was an overnight trip. We got down there in the afternoon, and what I always like to do when I get to DC is one stopping point always is Arlington National Cemetery. Dad and I went up there, we had a couple hours, and just happened to stumble upon a wreath-laying ceremony with, I think there was 23 of the Medal of Honor recipients there and the Citizens Heroes there. And it was definitely a sight to see, not something I don't know if I'll ever see again there, but it was great. So I made sure we got back to the hotel in time and got to the National Institute for Peace, and Dad and I were the first ones there, right when they opened up the doors. And we waited for everybody. I had no idea who was showing up besides the recipients and the Citizens Honors. I think the first couple people that showed up were the commander of the VFW and the American Legion. And then from there, everybody just started pouring in, and then the recipients got there. But this is it. That was the room there that we had it in. And they hosted the ceremony, and the recipients were up there to present each hero with an award. As you heard in the first video, Clinton Romachet, who was there also that night, you don't have to don a uniform for service or sacrifice. One of the awards, the Community Service Hero Award, went out to a group called Healing Household 6, which is located in Jacksonville, North Carolina. And they were selected for their work that connects caregivers of U.S. veterans with the essential resources needed to strengthen the Family Support Foundation. Healing Household 6 builds resilient households by focusing on the well-being of the family, helping to alleviate household tension and empowering caregivers and children. The award was accepted by Lisa Colella, the founder. There was 2 awards given posthumously. This one was Aaron Feiss, a single act of heroism. Aaron Feiss of Parkland, Florida, was selected for his courageous act on February 14, 2018, when he shielded his students from a gunman during an incident at the high school in Parkland. Unfortunately, he did not survive the attack, but he is attributed with saving the lives of at least 2 students. And in that picture, his wife and his young daughter were there to accept the award. The other posthumous award was given the Young Hero Award to Peter Wang, who, again, he was a victim of the Parkland shooting, and he was killed trying to help his classmates escape from a gunman at Parkland. Unfortunately, he also did not survive the attack. He was a member of the JROTC and was posthumously received the Army's Medal of Heroism. And his parents were there to accept the award. The other Young Hero Award, Anthony Borges, was, it was unbelievable what this kid did. You know, he was on the 3rd floor of Building 12 at Parkland, you know, when the gunman entered, and he was first shot in the leg and hauled himself into a classroom. From there, he held the door shut, pushing his back against it so that that gunman couldn't get inside. There were about 20 other students inside the room at that time. The gunman then opened fire through the door, hitting Anthony a number of times in the back before moving on. And this kid has gone through extensive surgeries, not to mention everything else, but he was there that night to accept his award. Blaine Hodge is from Bakersfield, California, and he was selected for his courageous act on September 10th, 2018, when he came to the aid of a woman being attacked with a machete. Blaine was severely injured in the incident, but both Blaine and the woman he assisted survived. And, you know, with all these awards, all these individuals, they were just ordinary people at the time. I don't think Blaine, walking into, I want to say it was a coffee shop or something, didn't expect to walk into a woman being attacked with a machete, but what did he do? He put himself in the middle, and thankfully him and the woman both survived. And a name that may be familiar to some of you is Travis Mills. He received the Citizen Honors Service Act. He's from Maine, selected for his lifetime of selfless service to the members of the combat wounded community. Through his founding of the Travis Mills Foundation, retired United States Army Staff Sergeant Travis Mills supports post-9/11 recalibrated veterans and their families through long-term programs that help these heroic men and women overcome physical obstacles, strengthen their families, and provide well-deserved rest and relaxation. On April 10th, 2012, Staff Sergeant Mills was critically injured on his 3rd tour of duty in Afghanistan by an IED while on patrol, losing portions of both legs and both arms. And here at the end of the night, everybody gets together on the stage for a picture. And then we get to congregate afterwards and talk, and I actually had the privilege of sitting next to Joe Jackson's widow, and Joe was he was being buried the next day at Arlington. I wish we could have stayed, but I had to get back. So it was nice chatting with her and conversing with her, and then Dad and I just kind of went through, And one of the individuals, if you recognize him from the first video, is Gary Luttrell, who pointed out that he was that kid who, was voted most likely to never succeed. Here he is. He, when called upon, he stepped up, and now he continues to, with the Medal of Honor Society. Another man I sought out was Sergeant Gary Bykirk, who you also saw in the video. And these men, you read their citations, and it just, if people weren't there to witness it, you'd never believe, what they did. Gary was a medic and continued to provide aid, even though, being shot, and, it was only until he collapsed, then he couldn't go on anymore. But until that time, he wouldn't stop treating his men. And this is one of his quotes from the video: "Life does not become significant until you start to live outside your comfort zone." This is one man I sought out. He's the first one I sought out to meet because I always wanted to meet Woody Williams, Herschel. He was in the video. He was on Iwo Jima. He was the man who carried the flamethrower running through the battle and obviously survived and took out a lot of the bunkers, pillboxes. But some of the quotes he has said, we all have a debt to pay. And he says, "The day I was born, I was handed a gem that is absolutely impossible to buy, and that was my freedom. Can't pay for it. There isn't enough money in the world." Before I get into this quote, there's another individual recipient, Tabor Rubin, who passed away, I think it was 2010, but I just finished his book a couple months ago. And Tabor was a man who was born in Hungary, became a prisoner in a concentration camp, was subsequently liberated by the American forces, and he promised from that day forward to, move to America, and if he does get that opportunity, he wanted to be a G.I. Joe. If you haven't seen his story, it's one you should look up. And so eventually he came to America, and he did everything he could to try and join the Army. Kept getting turned away because he couldn't pass the test, but finally he found somebody that helped him along. Joined the Army, and at that time in the 1950s, Tabor was Jewish, so there was a lot of anti-Semitism, so he was, sent on all these crazy missions alone and left alone. Short of the story is, throughout all those missions, he captured enemies, defeated enemies, held down the fort by himself. And then after one battle, he was taken prisoner of war. Not only is this man in a concentration camp, now he's been a prisoner of war for, I think it was a couple years. And then he had to wait, I believe it was about 50 years, before he finally received his medal for his actions. So poor is a nation that has no heroes, but shameful is a nation that has them and forgets. And here's another quote from Barney: "We live in the greatest country in the world. We have some problems, but the alternative is not very good. The future of our country lies in the hands of our youth." And as I forget who had said this to me, but we are only one generation away from losing our freedom. That's it. So how do I know this program works? I explained to you how I use it in my Explorer program briefly, but I've been working with it and using it with my children, who, my daughter's here now, my son couldn't make it. And I started using it through them, and I have noticed a difference over the last couple of years of how they are, the way they think, and it's just very different. And it's along the lines of what you like to see out of the character development program. Every December, we as a family, Dad, my kids, sometimes my niece, we go down to Arlington to volunteer for Wreaths Across America. And the first year we went down, 2013, so my kids were 8 and 10. Hiking around Arlington was a long day for them. But each year it got easier, and we've been down there when it's been 75 and sunny. We've been down there when it's been about 35 degrees and freezing rain and snowing. Never one complaint, never when are we leaving, nothing at all. We stay until we're finished placing the wreaths, and then usually we end up in section 60, the gold stars that are kind of a staple there. And like I said, there's always a picture with Barney. A few years ago when we went down, we had the privilege of laying a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown on behalf of VFW Post 10,052, and Cheshire Nursery made up the wreath and shipped it down to us. And now, don't get embarrassed, Haley. A couple years ago, we were down at Mohegan, and I would help out at an event called Vets Rock. And in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see Haley talking with Bob Kaiser, whose son, Andrew Peterson Keel, was killed in Afghanistan. And Bob and his wife were not going to make it down that year, so they asked Haley if she would lay the wreath at his grave, which down on the right, that's her that year laying the wreath. Later on the following year, we went to a fundraiser at Mohegan for their foundation, APK Charities. And we finally, because Helen had never met Haley, so we finally all got to introduce and talk to each other. And then up top here, the kids and I went down at the end of July. And, whenever we go down, we pay our respects to a lot of different people down there, but one we do now is Andrew Peterson Keel. And the shirts they're wearing were actually made for APK Charities by Nine Line Apparel, one of the biggest companies now that produces veteran shirts and supports the active duty. Some other stuff over the years, and this is where, we remember, we honor, we teach consistently, and this is what I do for my kids, and this is where it's expanding now, where I'd like to do it for many others. Obviously, we're always visiting the Vietnam Wall. Dad's in that picture, my niece, my daughter, and my son, and he's talking to them, living history lesson right there. On the right, they're laying wreaths. The bottom right was a picture before we laid the wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown, and my son, who's in a shirt and tie, you don't see him outside a t-shirt and shorts. This kid picked out his own outfit. He wanted to wear that because he knew it was a very important occasion for what we were doing. And then the kids again with Dad, and that's John Gravel's grave. John Gravel was a classmate of my father's, graduate in 1965 from CHS, who was killed in Vietnam. Last week, I sent an email to Barney and just asked him, anytime I do anything, I ask him for a little input so I can put something from him. And this is what he sent me back for this presentation. Any program that promotes patriotism, love of country, service before self, and the attributes of those who wear the Medal of Honor, courage, honor, commitment, loyalty, all coupled with their drive, determination, and dedication to mission accomplishment, goal achievement, can't be all bad. Adapting to CDP is the right thing to do at the right time, now, for the right reasons, equals the morality, respect for authority, lack of parental guidance for too many children, and the disregard for authority and demonstrated love of country patriotism by too many of our youth dictates we need to make a course correction to the challenges our youngsters are confronting. So let's get on with it. Let's do the right thing at the right time for the right reasons. I urge we charge on with gusto. A couple things I have here. I took the whole program. This is the whole program, character development program. I printed every page out so I have references. But they also, if you become a teacher, they send you a flash drive with all the information on it. And as well as, like they said, online you can access everything. One of the things that Barney always does for the kids when we're down there is he always gives them a book. And he inscribes it. And this is a book, it's called Choosing Courage. And it's inspiring stories of what it means to be a hero. And you'll see some of the same verbiage. You know, he inscribes it, you know, to Haley and Jack. And take to heart the stories herein, read and learn from each of them, great Americans who have done great things, know the different forms of courage, moral, physical, and ethical. They all mean doing the right thing at the right time for the right reasons. And he doesn't stop. He'll do it for anybody. He really wants to see this program get off the ground here in Connecticut, because if I didn't mention, Connecticut is one of only 6 states that has not adopted this curriculum and held a training. So I'd like to hopefully see it happening. Like I said, my goal is to host a training, and we'll implement it somewhere along with the curriculum, with the BOEs, whatever they would like to do with it. And that concludes my presentation.